So, welcome, Lior. Thank you for having this interview with us and taking the time out on your tight schedule. I want to start with basic introduction of. Could you tell me a little bit about you, your company, and just in general where Moburst is right now?
Sure. I'm Lior. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Moburst. We're mobile marketing agency. Although we've kind of evolved into being mobile first rather than mobile only, but primarily deal with mobile apps. And we have offices in Israel and in the US. Most of our client base are kind of US-based brands and mobile-first businesses, and we help them through a range of services, starting from more consulting services like strategy, how to launch an app, what KPIs to track, kind of go-to-marketing strategy, all of that, to product, where we kind of either design kind of apps from scratch, do the whole UI UX. We don't do usually the development, but we have kind of a lot of expertise around the product marketing side of things. Or in a case, we have a client which just has like an issue with their onboarding, their retention, so we kind of go in and help them solve that issue. So that's kind of the consulting side of services. And then we have basically go-to-marketing services, which are primarily App Store optimization, ASO, user acquisition, media, and we've kind of evolved into also doing lots of I'd say retention related services like email marketing, push notification, influencer marketing is kind of something that we've recently got into and see tremendous success and lots of exciting stuff there. But that's kind of I'd say our main lines of services. That's kind of about us. We're I'd say about 40 people strong nowadays. As I mentioned, teams in the US and in Israel. And we've been lucky to work with, I think, some of the most exciting apps in the world. So we've done ASO for most of Google's B2C apps. So we've done work on Google Search, Google Chrome, YouTube, Maps, etc. Discovery, Dunkin' Donuts, Reddit, Samsung. So lots and lots of interesting clients and interesting projects. And yeah, happy to meet with you today.
Could you explain me how COVID affected your company and your clients in terms of budget spending, for clients and ad spending?
Sure. So that was very interesting in our case, since we really saw different kind of effects across different industries. So we have some clients which, the app had some implications in real life. Travel apps, obviously, shopping, in-store apps, stuff like that. So that obviously disrupted their business. It affected travel apps, just vanished altogether, and others just decreased the budgets. And then there were other kind of mostly online digital offering, dating, gaming, obviously, that just exploded. Fitness at home, wasn't even a niche a year ago. Suddenly, I think we've been in like 3 or 4 RFPs in the last year just on this niche. So in kind of, for us, it was an accelerator in terms of many new clients, many budgets of brands which moved from digital or from kind of offline to digital into mobile. and new kind of products and niches that did not exist before. So for us, it was an accelerant.
How has budget spending for app marketers and app owners changed with the pandemic? Where are they focusing now?
Right. So I don't know that the mix has changed as much as so obviously we kind of know now that based on everyone saw the numbers of Google and Facebook and the other companies, people were much more online, meaning all these these ad companies had much more inventory to serve. So I I don't think the mix has changed that much. Rather than obviously, Facebook and Google are very dominant players in this space. So lots of the budgets kept flowing there. We saw lots of success on TikTok, which is kind of becoming the up and coming player. And it really changes by vertical. We also work with some kind of non-social, more like ad networks or programmatic sources. So for certain clients, we saw some success there. It's really on a case by case basis.
So in the latest Google update that was there, they basically restricted third-party cookies, and the cookie system really, I mean, it's been taken off the shelves, right? So how does that affect traffic or ad spending and even ad targeting?
Right. So there were a few mixed things there, because generally Google announced that Chrome would deprecate support of third-party cookies sometime this year. This has not happened yet. It is expected to happen. And separately, Google recently announced that they would stop collecting data of their current user on the current services. So kind of it a bit got mixed in terms of how the media saw that. So the latest update of how Google collects or doesn't collect data on their own services doesn't really. Most of the data they collect is outside of their services, so that didn't really have any effect on targeting. The cookie deprecation for sure will have an effect. The industry is basically transitioning, and Facebook is making a huge push towards like conversion API, like rather than having everything cookie based, reporting on events through the API. As always happens with these things, probably many advertisers will not be, and many publishers will not do the transition, and kind of as we get nearer, there will be probably some disruption. But I think, and this is kind of my interpretation of it, that as Google, has another side of being an ad company, and that's where most of the revenue is, then I'm pretty sure that at least in terms of their targeting and in terms of Facebook targeting, which do not only rely on cookie-based data, that they'll kind of flow through it. It will have some effect on targeting. I think the most the thing that is going to happen sooner is the whole iOS 14 update, which is expected end of month, which probably will have a bigger effect in terms of targeting abilities on Facebook and on Google. Because it's coming from not one of the ad platforms, it's coming from Apple. So they put in a lot of restrictions which would hinder those companies. But I still think that they have a pretty good amount of first-party data that they will be able to find ways to do some targeting. Some things like remarketing on iOS will be much harder after this. So things will change.
How do you see 2021 in terms of this whole ecosystem where there are new privacy laws coming and there are new updates coming that basically are going to alter user acquisition and user journey? So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So yeah, I think what we're seeing is essentially a shift in how users are awareness of users to their privacy, and that it's like this big movement or trend. So as you mentioned, it's in regulation, it's in the public scrutiny of companies like Facebook, which I think are customers are becoming much more aware on data privacy and what data is being collected by the digital services they use. That's a movement that will probably I don't foresee that changing. I think that's something that the system, and this is very much spearheaded by Apple, which has kind of an interest of its own to taking a very different position in this game of Tim Cook saying that privacy is a basic human right, and all of that, and kind of positioning Apple as the privacy kind of leading company. Which he can because they don't have as much ad revenue as the others. So I think it is a seismic shift. There will certainly be a lot of things in terms of how advertisers run user acquisition and thoughts about data, what data you can collect and what can you make from the data you collect. Because I think the kind of best practice to date was let's collect as much as we can and use kind of as needed. And that will obviously need to change. You'll need to be very, very thoughtful on each data piece you collect. And I think there will be a much like first-party data in terms of the big publishers will obviously become sort of a closed garden. We saw that in the mobile industry lately with Apple having acquisition of Adjust, and now it's kind of one platform which has like an ad network, and they have attribution, and they obviously are a publisher as well because they have many games. So I think we'll probably see more of that in terms of different players in the industry trying to have walled gardens of their own. And the rest of the advertisers, I think, will again need to see what they can do with their first-party data. The targetings will probably need to go a bit more broader and more generic. Then you will not be able to pinpoint, the 25-year-old which I don't know likes certain apps on Facebook. We probably won't have as granular. But I think contextual targeting and being, in the right places for the right users, and offering as much as you can personalized experiences in the apps and in the websites. So it's a transition that will start this year, but I think this is definitely something that will affect the whole kind of digital ecosystem. I think for the better, but definitely there will be some disruptions on the way.
Could you tell me very briefly about the three categories of data: first party, second party, and third party data, just as an overview, so our viewers can understand better, and how basically the new updates will change this hierarchy, and what can be sourced and what cannot?
Sure. So first party data, I think, is let's say first and third are probably the most well known. So first party data is data that you own and collect. So New York Times can use the data that they collect on their subscribers to target them and offer them services. Third party data is basically what what most advertisers use as in Facebook's data, and here there's a bit of I'd say overlap with second and third, because Facebook actually used to have, until not so recently, ingested into the Facebook ads platform. They had like third parties that are not Facebook, and you could like Axiom, and there are a few companies which essentially sell data companies that sell it. And then they sold that to Facebook, and you can use that on Facebook's platform to target. So most exchanges and media platforms offer to layer above third-party data. Second-party data is usually, it's essentially someone else's first-party data. So in our example of Facebook, if you use Facebook targeting abilities, not the third party, that would be considered second. Usually, I think the industry talks about first and third. Nobody really differentiates between the second and the third because the use case is pretty similar. But I think in terms of where the industry is going in terms of user privacy and data use, it's definitely, you can use the data you collect on your own users from your own services. That's even with Apple's upcoming update, that will still be possible. What the scrutiny and limitations would be on using the data that you do not own, that is not data that you collect.
It seems really ironic that on one hand we're going with all these, data privacy laws, and we're moving towards this direction where we say that the user has more and more control of their data and they are more aware of it. But on the other hand, we also have a constant rise of AI and machine learning, and the entire industry is based on data collection. So how does that get balanced?
Yeah, I think again, this is a lot about just the public opinions, and right now, like, data collection is bad, and Facebook is bad. I think, and this will be interesting to see how this plays out, specifically in the mobile industry with the upcoming iOS update, is that apps will need to ask permission of the users to track them. And what's kind of the talks in the industry is that apps are trying to, like, explain to the users why they should collect data, because you can have a more personalized service, a more personalized ads, etc. And it would be interesting to see how many users actually kind of explicitly agree to collect their data in order for them to get a more personalized experience, and all the things you mentioned about machine learning, and that, I think the most of the applications around that, how can the right user get the right content, the right ad, based off of machine learning. I think right now, like, the public opinion is very much negative, but I think it will at some point, like, be a trade-off between, okay, how much data should I give to get a personalized experience? You can think, like, if Facebook would not have personalized your feed, you just get generic stuff which would probably not really interest you. So that there is value of data collection and of algorithms kind of serving you the right thing. It has been probably kind of gotten a bit out of control in terms of algorithms' ability to manipulate and collect data. But I think there will be some way in the middle, and consumers at the end of the day will need to decide that trade-off.
So, is there a difference between Facebook ad targeting and Google ad targeting in terms of their framework?
So I think the difference is in, and when saying Google, that's a big bunch of Google is Google Search, it's YouTube, it's Google Display Network. Obviously, each one has different types of targeting, but I think Google is probably much wider known as the search engine. So with Google, you search for a certain keyword, you want to buy, I don't know, a pair of shoes, and Google, based on your search history and other stuff he knows of you, he knows that that this is a 25-year-old girl living in New York, will serve ads that the types of shoes or the types of websites which 25-year-old girls in New York are most likely to buy. So that's, I'd say, I put something that's called pull marketing. Essentially, you as a consumer have expressed, gave an explicit signal that you're looking for something, and then in turn Google serves you the right ad. Facebook, on the other hand, is more in the kind of push side of advertising. So when you're on Facebook, you're scrolling your feed, you don't explicitly want an app or whatever ad they're serving you. But because we give so much data to Facebook in terms of what we like, what we don't like, who we're connected, what brands we follow, etc., what posts we engage with, then Facebook has had a pretty good idea what kind of advertising might be relevant for. And I think we've all had that experience that you look for, I don't know, apartments, and then you're only advertised on apartments or whatever it is, shoes, or so it's kind of the algorithm learns what you're interested in now. Maybe you're researching your next trip, probably something that looks far away now with the pandemic, but at some point people will start traveling again. Then you'll get served traveling ads about resorts, hotels, etc. So I think that's the basic kind of framework of pull versus push.
So could you tell me a little bit about what do we exactly mean by customer data platforms?
So CRM is widely known. Everybody knows Salesforce, and I think every business from a certain size needs a CRM to manage their client relations, the basic data on who they are and what they bought, and basic like financial details. I think CDP is one layer above the basic kind of just database of customers, and it essentially layers your customers' interaction. So how they interact with your website, which emails did they click on, which kind of, and then does that for each individual user, and then groups that based on which customers might be open for a new product line, which customers are might be churning soon. So you might want to hit them with a certain offer, let's say on a gaming app or a social app. So CDPs essentially act as an additional layer above the basic CRMs to enable companies and advertisers to kind of find, and this is not for new users. This is obviously for existing users and customers to just segment and have the right message for the right customer.
So, as a leading mobile marketer company, what kind of data tools do you usually use in your day-to-day operations?
We use a lot. Yeah, there's really a bunch of tools out there. So obviously, I think Facebook and Google and their ad platforms are something that we use a lot. We layer above that, and in our industry specifically, there's the mobile measurement platforms: AppsFlyer, Adjust, Kochava, Branch. We kind of layer above that tools to help us mesh that data together, so we can have all the activity and media buying data in one place, and then take actions based on that. On the ASO side of things, we have tools. Some of them are just some names. So there's Mobile Action, there's AppTweak, and several others that help kind of understand what keywords is your app ranking for, kind of like SEO tools, just for ASO, and then also help you kind of understand how the changes you do for the app ASO, how do they affect the app ranking, etc. What else? And then I think the other stuff is probably like just tools that so we work a lot because interestingly enough, when we set off, we were very much working on Excel and Word, and as we worked more and more with Google, we kind of migrated to the whole Google ecosystem. So we do a lot of stuff around around Google Sheets, Docs, and automation between all of them. Putting that to Data Studio and the likes. That's kind of the things that come top of mind, and also and then influencer marketing. There's a bunch of platforms, so it's really by service basis, but we definitely work with a lot of tools.
Speaking of influencer marketing, could you tell me that in 2020, what are some of the influencer marketing trends that you are adopting and also looking forward towards?
Yeah, so first of all, I actually saw a number, I think earlier today, that the industry, the influencer marketing industry, I think is valued at 10 billion. So it's already a significant, and we actually kind of saw that we had a bunch of potential clients and clients kind of asking us, and then we kind of decided to go into this space. I think right now it's a bit of a jungle in terms of there is no real standardization in terms of pricing, in terms of your ability to it's still, although there are many tools to help you to do that, it's still quite hard to understand how a certain influencer will work for a certain brand without actually testing him, which kind of content will resonate with the audience. So I think and obviously the platforms themselves, TikTok and Facebook, are have created platforms on top of their social platforms to kind of allow discovery, and kind of they essentially want to control that piece of the business as well. So everything is evolving really, really fast, but I think it's an amazing opportunity for advertisers, because relatively to traditional advertising, just running ads, it's much more organic, so customers do not have that banner blindness and respond pretty well for it. And it also taps into the fact that influencers usually have a following which is engaged, and if you find the right influencer for the right product, then the chances of it resonating with their followers is usually very, very cost effective. We've seen some of our clients have like tremendous success, and in terms of ROI relative to advertising, I'd say like a 10x and even more than that in terms of the return on investment with influencer marketing versus some of the more traditional advertising. So it's a very interesting industry, still I think in the early stages and still developing, but definitely with a ton of potential.
So besides influencer marketing, what would you say in terms of marketing trends is going to be a highlight in 2021?
So I think with the whole shift in privacy that we talked, so for certain companies which really rely on advertising, advertising may not be as efficient as it was. They might not be able to continue to acquire the same amount of users for the same cost. And the implication, that's a kind of second order effect, I think, is that they'll need to make sure that they retain their users better. So I think the whole notion of retention in general, and then retention tools, push notification, the CDP platforms, which kind of help you identify the users and kind of which actions you should take to make more of your current users and retain them. I think that is something that we'll start to see more and more of this year. And also the whole notion of the privacy thing, as I mentioned, will require you to, if we're talking specifically on the iOS update, so advertisers will need to determine the quality of user over a much shorter period. So rather than measuring long time LTV and looking on first few weeks of engagement, advertisers will need to kind of determine if this is a good user or not, and if we should bid on certain similar users based on the first 7 days. The framework that Apple is the SKAd network is limited to 7 days, so that's all you can basically see. So the quality indicators all need to happen within those first 7 days in terms of the media optimization. So data analysis, AI, data, all this stuff, which I think is a general trend we're seeing, how to use the data will probably come in here as well.
Could you help me understand what is it that ASO will bring to the table in 2021 for mobile marketers?
Right. Yeah. So I think that this whole notion, and I've been hearing some discussion in the industry that parts of the reason that Apple is doing this is also to kind of bring back the app discovery process to the store, because it really was outsourced to the app platforms in terms of how users discover new apps. So I think that will definitely make ASO an even more dominant play. So first, in terms of, I think very quickly, what is ASO? We kind of separate ASO into two: the discoverability factor, meaning when a customer types in a certain keyword, relevant keyword, does he find you in the App Store? How easy or hard is it to find? And we all know that there are like more than 4 million apps across both app stores, so there are many apps competing for customers' attention, and the challenge is to really appear on the most relevant keywords, because you have a certain limit on the amount of keywords you can appear on. And then the second is the conversion rate. So once a customer finds you, how do you kind of engage in a way which will get them to actually download the app? So we kind of built our whole service around lots of data collection from the app stores on what keywords have traffic, and what keywords are relevant, and looking on like for any given app, we probably look at 5,000 keywords to kind of identify the opportunities and like the different permutations of keywords. Try to cover basically anything that customers might be searching, to make sure we're kind of not missing out on the opportunities. Then there's obviously like trends. What are users currently searching for? And there's also a big in terms of the ESO process, there's a lot to do with Apple Search Ads, which is obviously an emerging player in terms of understanding what users search for, or what keywords actually drawing performance. So for many of our customers, we kind of run both the Apple Search Ads and the ASO, and kind of have a combined strategy. And on the conversion side of things, there's a whole range of tools you can use to kind of A/B test the icons, screenshot the preview video, to make sure that essentially, I think when thinking about app marketing versus website marketing, is with the fact that with web, you can have like a different landing page for every product, for every use case, versus an app, there's one storefront, one landing page for all your customers. And finding that right mix of screenshots, of pre-video, of messaging that will apply for most of your users and still get them to convert is definitely a challenge, definitely for big apps. So that's something we're doing a lot of work in.
But in terms of ASO specifically, what are the new updates that people should be looking for in ASO in 2021?
Yeah, so I think there are many emerging categories and niches. I mentioned like at-home fitness, and like all kinds of niches, which I think will be opportunities, because customers are kind of searching for things that did not exist. So that's always happening. Clubhouse and the whole category of live podcasting did not exist a year ago. So the fact that the industry is evolving so fast and so many new categories and products are being released. So I think just being on top of what are customers searching for, what are the trends, and how can an advertiser capitalize on it, And then another, and I think, as I mentioned, ASO will just become even more important. And some of the things that are not new, but in terms of localization, so making sure that your app, is present in the, let's say you're a global app, so you want to speak to China in Chinese, so have like a Chinese listing. Same goes for France or Italy or Germany or Spanish. So try to kind of localize to the different markets, and because we know that in that usually customers search in their local language, and most places are pretty comfortable with English, so they'll search in their local language, download the app, and it's perfectly fine if the app itself is in English. But again, the journey started in their local language. So localization, I think, will continue to be a strong thing for ASO. And then lastly is Apple Search Ads, which just by the nature of the whole Apple update, I think will become even more dominant in terms of, and the rumor is that Apple will roll out new targeting abilities. There are also rumors about them releasing kind of new ad placements within the App Store. So that will obviously have tremendous effect on the App Store dynamics.
As a marketer who's done really well in the industry, what is the best and the worst piece of advice you've ever received professionally?
So the best I can say that I think in our connected world, it's pretty amazing, the fact that you can literally reach anyone, and I think you'd be surprised as to like how positive people, when you reach out for help, or even to kind of get a piece of advice. So people which either you would not think that they're approachable, or that you will be able to find them. So like, don't be afraid to find someone and engage with them. So in Moburst early days, we managed to get into discussions with the president of Dunkin' Donuts, which as a small mobile agency from Israel, what are the chances that they'd even consider speaking with us? So definitely, I think don't be afraid to speak with and reach out to people. The worst piece of advice, yeah, I think it's the worst piece of advice is specifically in our industry, is like, I think, seeing any of the updates, and again, it can be privacy, it can be SEO, which was kind of my former background. The industry is so dynamic that I don't think that any like one update is a killer for anything. For sure, do not build your entire business on one platform, because that's on the good advice probably. But yeah, I think not seeing any of these dynamic changes as a killer to marketing, but rather thinking how to evolve and make the most out of it.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me, really, Leo. It was a pleasure.